Well, welcome back to another episode of Buffalo Happy Hour. Mike, what's up?
Derek, we are back in our home studio, thirsty, which is good because we got a solid guest. We'll start with introductions, titles, names if they exist, and then we'll dive into all things you, man.
All right, I'm Mike Lane. I'm the face behind Greenlight Brewing.
So, how did this whole thing start?
So, back when I was in the Army, I fell in love with beer and brewing and craft beer. And then one day, I decided I'm going to start home brewing. So I bought a 1-gallon kit from Crafted Brew is what it was called. Made the kit, fell in love with it, kept doing it, gave it to all my friends in the barracks, and they were all like, just keep doing it. So I kept doing it. One day, we were on a C-130, we were about to do a jump, and one of my good friends, his name's Cole, looked at me and said, "Big Mike, Greenlight Brewing." And I got out of the Army, and I was like, I want to keep brewing, I want to keep doing this stuff. So for fun, I just made this Instagram. I didn't know what to call it. At first, I was thinking about Buffalo-related names like Good Neighbor Brewing, all that kind of stuff. Like, I was born, raised in Buffalo. Let's keep it Buffalo-related. And it had no attachment to me whatsoever. So I figured, let's go Greenlight Brewing Company. It has attachment to me, is what I just did for 5 years. And it stuck, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you a Southtowns dude or a Northtowns dude?
Grew up in Lockport.
Oh.
So heavy North Towns.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, it's different. Because it's not the Northtowns. You know what I mean? Like what everyone thinks of it as.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So when
Why did he say Greenlight Brewing? Just because?
So when you're a paratrooper and you're
That's
jumping
fair.
out of a plane, right? There's two different kinds of planes. There's a C-17 and a C-130. You see them flying. Well, you used to. You don't see them anymore flying over here. But C-130, there's two lights. There's a red light and a green light. And a C-17, there's a red light, amber light, green light. Red light means there's no jumping right now. Doors aren't open or doors are open. Amber light on a C-17 means there's 30 seconds until the green light turns on. And green light turns on, that means you're jumping out of the plane. It's time to go. So, and when the green light turns on, the jump master will yell, "Green light, go," and he'll smack you in the butt. And you just start jumping out of the plane, and everyone follows suit right behind you.
Oh, sick. Okay.
Yeah, so that's just kind of where it came from. It's like, green light. So.
That's sick. That's cool that there's a story behind it.
Yeah.
And it's not just like you were at a stoplight one time and you're like, I want it to be green, and then it turned green. You're
Right.
like, all right, perfect.
No, there's no red lights when you're in a C-130 unless you literally can't jump.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't know that, so that's
Yeah.
pretty sick.
Yeah,
Did you have
absolutely.
other names in mind? I mean, you said you kind of wanted to have it Buffalo.
Yeah, I just thought of like one of them was just Good Neighbor because
Yeah.
we're known as the city of good neighbors. So
Yeah.
I was like, there's nothing else in a Good Neighbor, but that just didn't stuck, and I didn't like it because it didn't have like so much attachment to me. Like I just spent 5 years
Yeah.
jumping out of airplanes, so like let's make it something that I enjoy doing and stuff. So
I feel like too, when people are creating names for any business, they try to go down that Buffalo route. I mean, we were guilty of this. I mean, we still are guilty. We're literally called Buffalo Happy Hour, but it starts to get a little cliche after a
Right.
while. It's like, do I really want to name myself
After
this name? Because
Yeah.
it's like, it just seems like you're trying so hard to make it Buffalo centric that it's just trying too hard. So we're renaming our podcast right now to Green. No, I'm just kidding. But it's kind of crazy. And do you feel the same? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many businesses that are just called like X and it's Buffalo, and it's just like, okay, cool.
There's 9 businesses that currently battle over their naming rights because they wanted to go after the weather title.
right, lake effect.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's ridiculous. There's more to life. But it's easy because you can fit it for so many different business models. It just doesn't always, I don't know, it's crazy. Especially if you started it, you were the very first business in the area to say that, and then all of a sudden 8 businesses are running up saying like, well, I'm going to take a twist on the same thing. It's got to be super aggravating.
Right.
Their legal team has to be like hating their lives.
Yeah.
But, so where has it grown since then? Because that was how many years ago since you actually started Greenlight Brewing?
so I started the Instagram page like pretty short after I moved back to Buffalo, which was November of 2020. And it started off just for fun. Like I just wanted to post pictures of like my beer that I was making at home and kind of like tracking like my progress of growing from kind of like a novice home brewer to like building up to an intermediate and advanced stage home brewer. And next thing I know, I just started like getting follower after follower after follower. And then I'm a huge history buff. Like World War II history is like my thing. I guess it's one of the things you have to be when you become an older guy, I guess, right? So I was like, okay, let's make these beers into stories of like World War II history and people that you don't hear every day about. You didn't learn about these people in high school, middle school, anything in school. So I started finding these people to tell stories about, or like battles in World War II to tell stories about, and I would try to attach that specific style of beer to either that person, that city, that battle, something like that. So like a Kolsch, I just did a Kolsch recently, which is from Cologne, Germany, and there's a huge battle in Cologne, Germany in World War II, and in Cologne, Germany, there was a cathedral that was the focus point of the battle. There was a German tank parked outside of the cathedral, so I called the beer the Cathedral. And I made a Kolsch from Cologne, Germany. So I try to make these attachments, and it turns out people love that stuff. People loved the stories. They loved the history lessons they were getting. They loved that I was attaching a specific style of beer to this person who was born in Edinburgh, Scotland, and I was making a Scottish export. They loved that. They ate it up. So I just kind of ran with it, and it kind of like just took me to like where I am now, to where like I've made friends within the industry, the actual professional brewing industry. I brew beers at professional scales with Windy Brews and Spotted Octopus.
Hell yeah.
So it's just taken to that level now, and like I'm forever grateful, and I'm surprised that this dude, this bum, made this Instagram account, and it's came into this. So
yeah. What those stories? Do you just post this like the actual story on Instagram when you post the beer, or do you have a website or anything like that?
No, I always post the picture of the beer itself. My wonderful wife takes all the photos.
Nice.
And then I try to attach a photo of like that specific person or that specific city or whatever. I try to put a black and white photo, or if I can find a colored one, I will attach it with that picture too, so that person can swipe on Instagram and see like, this is the beer. All right, that's the person that's attached to the beer. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Would you be able if this does? First of all, are you planning on like actually becoming a brewer? We can get to it down the road, but I just want to know.
I'd love to, but I think a lot of people they underestimate how much actual work it is.
100%.
And financially, like it's just not within the picture right now. And I don't want to get myself into $500,000 in debt.
Sure. But like I could see if you have your own label, like a 16-ounce can, and putting that story on the can. I mean, that'd just be the selling point right there.
Right.
Because then, part of our show is rating label branding, because the way that you're presented with your product just will change your entire perspective on the actual product, whether it's good or bad. It's like, at least I have this sweet can that now is a conversation piece. So I could just see totally just being like the black and white themed can with the story on the side, and it's just, that's the selling point too. And then the beer is good when you open it.
Yeah. So one of the buddies that I brew with has a canning system at his house. So I'm actually going to be brewing a beer soon. It's my Scottish export beer, who's named after Ronald Spears, who was eventually the commander of Easy Company from Band of Brothers. I don't know if you guys have seen that series or not, but
way too many times to count.
Yeah, and I'm going to get a label made for it, and I'm just going to can the whole entire thing and make a bunch of 6-packs.
That's sick.
Yeah.
What's the size of your system now?
I brew 3.5 gallons. I used to brew the 5 gallons, and it was just too much, and I was wasting too much beer, because at the time I was the only it was just me drinking all the beer, and 5 gallons of beer, that takes a long time to get through by yourself, And I just kept wanting to brew beer to get better at it, and then I just kept dumping these beers, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to scale down. So I scaled down to 3.5 gallons, which is perfect because it's enough for me to drink myself, enough for me to make a post about it, enough to share with friends, and then it's time to me to brew another beer.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
So what did you bring today?
So this beer here is peach and apricot sour, but it's not like, it's like sour, you know what I'm saying? It's not like teeth enamel ripping sour, and it's not like froth sour that's like super thick. Peach and apricot sour. This is named after a woman named Virginia Hall, who was the most notorious spy in World War II. She blew up bridges, she hunted down Nazis, all that kind of stuff. She did it with one leg.
Damn.
Yeah, she's pretty badass.
That's cool.
This beer here is kind of like the series I'm working on. It's called Heavy Drop. So in the airborne world for the Army, there's these things called heavy drops. So it's when they load the back of a C-130 or C-17 with howitzers or Humvees or ammo supply, MRE drops, anything like that. They open the back of the tailgate, and it slingshots right out of the back of the plane, and it's called a heavy drop. So I call it heavy drop because it's a hazy IPA, heavy drop, hence the hops.
Sure.
So, and then this beer here is kind of a personal beer. When I found out my wife was pregnant with our first child, I said, if it's a boy, I want to make a big, like 10% plus, like stout or whatever, and just age it on like oak chips or something until he's born. Or if it was a girl, I wanted to make like a saison, and I wanted to put mixed fermentation, so put some Brettanomyces in it or something. So obviously I had a girl. So this is a saison, pitched with saison yeast, and then fermented for 5 days. Then I pitched what's called Brettanomyces, which is a funky strain. It gives comes from England. Long story short, you can give off like hay, horse leather, like all that kind of stuff. But if you do it right timing, you can get like really fruity, tropical.
Oh, cool.
Yeast vibes too. And then I put chamomile flowers in here too. So I don't know if you ever had chamomile tea or anything like that, but same sense. I just put the flowers in there as well. So
Sure.
it's kind of like a fun, like personal kind of beer, you know.
That's sick.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then it was conditioned on champagne yeast and stuff like that too. So it's like bubbly and whatnot. Yeah.
So are you traditionally educated in, like, did you go to school for brewing at all, or is this all just homebrew?
I went to YouTube University.
Hell yeah. Love that.
Same.
I mean, you can learn anything on YouTube, you know. I sat in my barracks room in the Army, and on Saturdays and Sundays I would just watch hours and hours and hours and hours of how to brew beer, and these guys on brewing beer and like learning it and stuff like that. And then we had in North Carolina we had a store called Grapes and Hops. It was a wine store, beer store, and they had like you could make your own custom 6-packs and whatnot. And they would have it like sectioned off like stouts, IPA, sours, German, England, whatever kind of styles of beer. I just go there on a Friday and I'd make custom 6-packs all the time and just try all these different styles of beer and find out what you like and what you don't like.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm clearly not in the industry. So when you go to a brewer, like a brewery, and want to become a brewer for them, like an assistant brewer or whatever, do you need credentials or no? Because like to me, I'm trying to figure out where the need for traditional schooling for brewing even exists anymore with YouTube, because you can learn so much faster on YouTube too.
I think it helps. I know ECC had a program for a while where I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe they set you up with like an internship. Okay. And I don't think they'd guarantee you a job afterwards with a brewery, but I think like you get a job, you know.
Sure.
So you can go that route. I also think it's like a lot of who you know. Like if I know someone and like, okay, they know I'm, brewing beer and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like I won't name the brewery, but a couple weeks ago I got offered an assistant brewing job. It was like an hour away. I'm not gonna, didn't take it. It's too far, but they'd messaged me on Instagram. Obviously they see my stuff and they liked it. So I don't know if that happens often or not, or if like headhunting happens, if like someone from X brewing company wants to hire someone from Y brewing company. So
Yeah.
You said you worked with Wendy.
yeah.
Love those dudes.
Yeah, Russ is a great guy.
Yeah, Coach Russ is a savage. So he, when we were sitting down and going over everything with him, he like started off hot about the dog. He's like, just watch out for the dog. He's like, just live your life. The dog's just like blind. It's going nuts. He's like, just walk around it. We're like, okay. We go inside. He's super great host. And then come to find out, he's low key helped, I don't know, dozen plus people in the beer world with just anything possible, from just quick tips through messages or bringing them in and working with them. So what was your experience there? Because they got a great system and just an overall nice setup and flow. What has that been like?
So when I announced that, I'm not brewing for Spotted Octopus anymore or anything like that. I just got too busy with life. But when I announced that I was like going to start Gypsy Brewing there, and I was going to start brewing some beers for them, Russ had reached out to me and was like, hey man, like come out to the brewery. So I was like, all right. So my wife and I went on like a Friday night or whatever to the brewery. We started talking, got like a tour of the place, and he's like, hey, every year for Veterans Day we brew a beer called the Veterans Juice, and we use Yakima Chief hops. Comes out with this blend every year called Veterans Blend, and some of the proceeds go to like veterans organizations and whatnot. And he bought these hops called Veterans Blend hops, and he invited me out to brew the pale ale, I think it was, for Veterans Day for them. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
How many? You mentioned earlier about people don't realize the amount of work that actually goes behind it. How many hours were spent on that beer alone?
I think I got there at 8 a.m. and I didn't leave until like 2 p.m. and I only left that early because I had to go to a wedding. So I mean, he was probably there till 5 brewing.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I mean, you're sweating because it's hot in there. There's not really AC or fans going. It's boiling, so it's work. Digging out all those grains from the mash tun and stuff like that.
So these beers, you want to try some?
Sure. Which one do you guys want to try first?
It doesn't matter to me. I just want to get some.
Whatever makes
get
sense.
a taste.
Because I know if you start with like a sour, sometimes it ruins. It's almost like scotch. If you start with a scotch, you're like destroying your palate.
So I don't think this. I think this one was perfect for a day like today.
Okay.
Like
Let's
just
do
a
that.
hot.
Ooh, good carbonation.
Just a hot day outside. This is
Yeah.
the perfect like crisp beer for it. So
Down for that.
Pour yourself too. Yeah.
And it's 5% alcohol too, so it's nothing like.
It's a 5% because he's away from his mic,
Yeah.
just so the audience knows.
It's not going to throw us on our back.
Thank you.
I think I heard something on a show or something like that if you get drunk from beer, you more or less fall forward on your face, and if it's spirits, you fall backwards on the back of your head.
Really?
I could have just made that up, but I'm pretty sure I heard that from somewhere.
We should dive into that for a weekly episode.
That should be a Patreon. You and I just get blitzed off of beer and spirits.
And then stand up and test the theory.
So if you guys tested the theory, you guys are more spirits guys than I am. You tested the theory before, what's it, beer before liquor?
Yeah.
You've never been sicker. Have you guys tested that theory before?
Yeah, I think when I have, it's been more like over a long period of time. So I'd have spirits in the whoa, easy.
I mean,
I
your
had
bachelor
spirits
weekend
earlier.
was real early.
That's true. And then spirits before beer, you're in the clear. Yeah, beer before liquor. I probably have. I normally don't go too crazy and get sick unless I'm pounding beers.
Yeah.
Because then I just feel so bloated and gross. But cheers, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely, dude.
But yeah, I don't know if I've ever really gotten sick from that. Have you?
Too much whiskey I've gotten sick on. Too much wine I've gotten sick on. Beer I haven't gotten like anything crazy. Not going vertical. Going down though, definitely had problems with the next day after way too much beer, but that was like early college years. And then I realized that I didn't feel really good after a decent amount of beer, so then I just basically switched straight to whiskey.
Yeah.
And I feel totally fine and normal afterwards, which is weird. But I don't know. Everyone's different, really.
So in the National Guard, do you guys have dining ins and balls and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So when you guys have your dining ins, do you guys do the grog?
Things got wild. So, but it's not necessarily a norm.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so we did a dining. We had an 18-month Global Response Force mission one time. So like a year and a half, like you're on call 24/7. And
It's the most 82nd airborne thing ever.
Yeah, it was just hell. It was horrible. And after the 18 months, they threw a big party for us. They were like, "We're done," you know. So there's just grog. So there's rules of dining in the Army, right? So you can't like go to the bathroom during certain times. You can't be on your phone. You can't have your hands in your pocket. All that kind of stuff. So they had this big grog, and it's like a show, like literally like a show of the pouring them in. I mean, they just take whiskey, they take rum, they take vodka, they pour it in this bowl, and they take sand from the drop zones, they pour it in there, they put gum in there, they put a jump master put its knife in there, like a dirty knife in there and stuff like that. And you get called out, you gotta take a ladle, you gotta take a canteen cup.
God.
You're not waking up.
You're not waking up.
I couldn't get my top button done off my dress uniform. I was like, oh my God.
That's wild.
Oh, jeez.
We've done, we didn't put abnormal things like sand or a dirty knife in, but somebody dunked their boot once, and then, but no like sand or anything like that, but we've mixed different alcohols. I don't really know how many people actually know that happened though. That's like super low key, but I don't know, it's out there now, so screw it. And it was in the cafeteria.
What do you think of this? Because you're generally not a sour guy. What are your thoughts?
It's like pleasantly sour. It's like the right amount. It's not an airhead sour where it's like, and it makes you kink your neck, and then you got to go to the chiropractor because we're old now and you like can't do that. But it's refreshing.
Yeah, like
It's crisp.
your tongue senses sours, I believe, on the side of your tongue. I think that's how like the anatomy of your tongue is. This initially, when you taste it, it just tastes like a fruited. Like a Kolsch or a fruited something like that, or fruited ale. You don't get the sour until like the back half of your tongue, which I really enjoy, because as soon as you put that sour like super front heavy, then you start getting the entire viscousness of your tongue and you just feel gross.
Yeah.
This is really good.
Thanks.
This is very smooth.
That's what I don't brew this kind of style often until it's like summertime, and then it's like today, 87 degrees outside. You're working outside or something like that.
Yeah.
If you cut the lawn, like a lot of people want like a Pilsner or a Kolsch, like the lawnmower beers, you know.
Yeah.
But like this, to me, like it's just crisp. It's got that little bit of tartness and it's a little fruity.
And it's light.
Yeah.
It's super like it's it's like a thin light, which is nice.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thanks.
This is crazy.
So do you put like when you're adding the fruit in, is it just puree? Like who are you going to for that?
So you have options, right, as like a brewer. This is puree. There's a few companies that kind of make puree. I don't want to say specifically for brewing beer, but like the brewing beer websites they're on there, so I'm going to use those.
Yeah.
So this one's Oregon fruit purees. You can buy these at Wegmans and stuff like that. But then people use real fruit. You have to be a little more careful with real fruit because it's got the like pesticides on it and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of organisms and that could ruin the beer instantaneously, put mold on it, cause infections. Or you can use frozen fruit. Frozen fruit's pretty easy to work with because as it freezes, it's like sanitized already, so you don't have to worry about all that kind of stuff. Or you can use extract, but I don't really like extract flavorings. I'm kind of like sensitive to it, so I kind of pick out, if it's extract like right away. And I don't think extract flavoring like tastes very good to me. I'd rather like puree is just so you just pour it right into the beer.
Right.
It's so easy to use.
So you said this is peach
Peach and apricot.
and
Yeah,
apricots.
I don't really taste the apricot, to be honest.
Yeah.
I taste more of the peach. I don't know if apricot puree is just not strong or what it is, but the peach really came out nice in this.
So where's that sour coming from then? Because neither of those are sour.
So there's a few methods you can use to sour beer. You can go the real traditional method, which is using a yeast culture called lactobacillus, and that's like the traditional method, and that takes 18 months to make, possibly.
Damn.
Yeah, it takes a long time. Or you can use what's called kettle souring, which means you pitch a lactobacillus culture into your kettle, and you keep it at a certain temperature for a couple days, get to the pH that you want it to bring it down to the sourness level, and then you boil it off, and then you pitch your regular yeast strain, your ale strain or whatever. And then recently, this company called Lallemand, they're a yeast company in Canada, they came out with this strain called Philly Sour. It's just like a regular strain. It sours the beer first, and then it ferments the beer. And it doesn't you use that lactobacillus strain normally, you have to either throw out that equipment or you have to keep your stuff really clean because it can infect your entire brewery really quickly, and then you're going to have all sour beer. So this Philly Sour doesn't cause infections or anything like that. You can just pitch it and just like a regular strain. So
So they basically pureed souring beer.
yeah, pretty much. So this is just Philly Sour yeast, and it just,
Oh, really?
it just sours the beer
Wow.
first, and then it ferments it like a normal ale. Yeah. So
Do they make new yeast strains all the time?
all the time? Yeah.
It's
They're-
got to be so complicated to figure out what you want to use
Yep.
in your brew.
So what they're doing now is there's a few yeast companies. One of them's called Omega Yeast. What they're doing is they're creating these hybrid strains, and they're putting two strains together and basically mating them, I guess you could say. And they're creating these really precursor strains to make aromas. The hazy IPA world, like New England IPA, is what started all this. Just making strains, make hops be more pronounced and whatnot. So it is pretty cool. It's way above my head, to be honest, but
Yeah, but it works.
yeah.
So you got a 3.5 gallon system. Where is your system? Did you build out a designated area?
Yeah, so first I started off in my barracks on my stovetop.
Yep. Hell yeah.
Moved to an apartment in North Carolina, moved to my stovetop, moved back home, bought an electric system in Buffalo. You brewed in the kitchen there. Then we bought a house last year, my wife and I did, and then I kind of took over a section of the basement.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Okay. So
But that has to be outfitted for all that stuff, right? You can't just move stuff in your basement, or can you?
You can, yeah. I mean, everything that I use runs off 120 volts, so it's
okay.
regular outlets and stuff like that. You can make it 240 volts if you want to, and then the only real big modification I had to do was because I'm brewing inside and there's so much steam from a boil and stuff. I had to buy this thing called a steam condenser. So you kind of just hook it up to a hose, and it shoves in cold water, and the boiling water comes out of the top and it shoots into a bucket. So you're just essentially pushing the steam down into a bucket for you, so you don't have to worry about steam at all.
Sure.
Yeah.
wow, that's sweet.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about mold or mildew or anything like that.
What's your focus on water? And what water you use to brew and all that?
So I actually used to just buy 1 gallon, a bunch of 1 gallon jugs from distilled water from Tops, because distilled water starts at 0. There's no minerals in it, nothing. And then I would build a water profile based off that. And then I realized, well, that's kind of getting expensive. And then I just realized those 5 gallon jugs that you can buy to put into those machines that you see
Yeah.
at office buildings, that's reverse osmosis water, which is the cleanest water you can buy. So I just started buying those, and then if you take the empty return back to Tops or Wegmans, you get the next 5 gallons for cheaper. So
Oh, sweet.
yeah, just do it that way.
I don't know if that was reverse osmosis water.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
So
I Googled it before I bought it. I made sure it was clean water.
That's awesome.
I did not know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, we should get one of those.
Yeah, right. Little because we have a little reverse osmosis dropper for our whiskey when we dilute it down to get it to taste different.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that. At least you're not using tap water.
No, I started using tap water because if you like start, this is one of the things that bothers me about like beer brewing books and stuff like that, is they tell you initially like you can use whatever water you want to make good beer. As long as the water's good enough to drink, you can make good beer with it. It's totally not true at all. It is the furthest thing from the truth. Water is like 99% of the beer.
Right.
You know, there's so much of it. Like if I don't have good drinking water, like it's not going to be a good beer whatsoever. So.
And then they just released that study that was like tap water has long-term effects for like 94% of the population because it's got trace amounts of all this like craziness inside of it, and it's like nationwide.
Yeah.
I was like, well, whatever. I'm still drinking out of the hose, so I don't care.
There's a company called Ward Labs. They have like a home brewing section where you can like send in a little vial of your tap water from your home or your city or whatever and get it tested, and they'll tell you like what the mineral count is in your water.
Oh, cool.
And you can put it into like brewing software and stuff like that and you edit it that way, but I'm not even going to bother.
Yeah, it's too much work.
Right, and who knows how often, like I live in Tonawanda, so who knows how often the town of Tonawanda's water fluctuates.
Right.
It could change from monthly, or seasonally or something like that, so I'm not going to bother.
Yeah. Because then you lose the consistency too.
Right.
And that's a big part of beer is like if somebody gets that sour, they want it that same exact way if they like it.
Right.
Yeah, it's got to be tough. So from that perspective of making it consistent, do you have all your recipes written down in a book and all that? Like, how if you were to brew that again, would it taste basically the exact same?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the goal. I think it would probably change a little bit. I mean, like a lot of the things is hops. Hops change from crop to crop. Like 1 year, one of the most popular hops is Citra. Let's say 2023 crop of Citra, it might be like super orange, tangerine, clementine, like super citrusy, super good. Like next year's might be total trash. It might not even be like orange at all. So that beer might have to change a little bit. So it might not typically be like the same beer every time.
Sure.
But it can be pretty close, yeah. Like I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Alchemist Brewing before. He's kind of the one who started like the whole hazy New England IPA trend with a beer called Heady Topper.
Yep. In Vermont or something like that?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. He even said that he's like, this beer is going to change every year because of the hops. Some hops are going to be really good this year. Some hops are going to be really bad.
That's crazy because when Budweiser, for example, makes a mistake, they dump beer.
Yeah.
But that's someone's like full-time job is to dump that bad beer. I wonder, and that's obviously an insane amount of money that's just going down the drain because their tanks are ginormous. But from the craft brewing scene here, I really want to know how much they actually waste or like what happens when there is a legitimate amount of waste. But I feel like they're so regimented on everything that they almost don't have that accident. But like, I don't know, someone like Resurgence, like what happens?
Well, to me, I think that like with the craft scene, if it tastes different, then you just call it something different. And like instead of it being this, now it's like that might have been. I have no idea if this is true, but that might have been how Dayburner came after Hayburner. Like they did Hayburner, and they're like, "Hey, this doesn't taste right. Let's make it Dayburner." That's just an example. I don't know if that's true, but like that's what I'm thinking is they just are like it's something different now.
So, one of my favorite breweries of all time, they're in Asheville, North Carolina, called Burial Beer Company. If you guys ever get a chance to go out there, highly recommend these guys. Whatever, awesome beer, awesome scene, awesome culture around there. It's just great all around. They made a post a few years back, and it stuck with me. And it's this big brewery. I mean, they're well known. They've won numerous awards. They've won like best small brewery in the country a few times. So they know what they're doing. They posted a picture of them dumping out like a whole fermenter, like 10 barrels worth, which it's a lot of beer. That's hundreds of gallons of beer. They dumped it all, and they said, "Good brewers dump that beer." And like that's kind of like been my motto. Like even if I'm at home and it's not good to me, I'm dumping it.
Sure.
It's why just waste a keg and my CO2 on it if I'm not even gonna drink it if it's not good. Like I have a beer at home now. I made a Belgian triple, and I put honey in it. Try to replicate like the New Belgium honey triple. If you guys ever had that before.
Oh yeah.
It's not good. It's super like medicinal flavoring. The honey's way too strong. I'm dumping it. It's just taking up space and wasting CO2.
Yeah.
There's just no point in it. I'm not gonna drink it.
I think there's a difference though between like it coming out bad and it just coming out different though, right? Like if that came out good but it didn't taste like what you were doing, I would probably just label that something else, right? Like would you still dump that?
I guess if it's still palatable, maybe not.
Right.
But if it's not palatable at all and it's just like, okay, okay, this is gross.
Yeah, and you're just adding more hops to
Right.
cover
Try
it
to
up.
mask
Yeah,
the
I got you.
flavor. I'm going to dump it. And even like that Burial Beer Company, they said in a podcast, in order for a beer to get canned and put on tap there, the two owners have to pass it.
Oh, okay,
Like
that's
they,
cool.
like they're kind of like the quality.
Yeah,
Quality
quality.
control, yeah.
Yeah.
Quality assurance. That's wild.
Yeah. But I mean,
Good for them, though.
But
Yeah.
if you want to be well known and you want to like okay, they make good beer all
Yeah.
the time. Like you got to do what you got to do, you know. And if it, if you have to take in $15,000 on that beer, like sucks,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
But like, I guess the way like, I don't want your name to be changed differently because of one bad beer, you know. Like that could change, like one bad Yelp review could change the path of the entire business.
Sure.
Like, imagine one bad. I mean, I don't know how bad Untapped reviews could be, but
Are you on Untapped?
no.
No, you don't do your own reviews.
No.
They're just internal.
Yeah.
Yeah, internal
This beer
reviews.
sucks.
Dumping it.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's crazy. So what was the first beer you ever made?
First beer I ever made was actually a New England IPA. It was an extract kit. It was like 1 gallon extract kit. I think it was like Citra, like Mosaic, and Galaxy hops or something. It was whatever came in the kit. So it was pretty cool. Did it come out good? I probably not. And my friends all just said it was really good because they were getting free beer and they're in the Army and they just wanted to get drunk. So
These kits, who makes them? And like that has to also vary though, right? Like, can you just buy a kit for it and it just comes out the same?
I don't know. I haven't brewed a kit like since 2018. So I mean, maybe I'll try that and see what happens. Buy 2 of the same kits and brew them both at the same time and see what happens. But I'd imagine it's pretty consistent. Like the kits, the extract kits, they're pretty simple. You just like bring up some boiling water and you put the extract in. And you pretty much have beer. Yeah, it's like 10-step instructions. It's super easy.
So that's what's got you hooked, is just doing that one, and then you're like, I can try something else. Did you go from a New England to something else, or did you try another New England yourself?
So it was actually kind of funny. So when I lived in North Carolina, I was in the Army. There's this place called Southern Pines Growler Company, and it's this really cool place, huge like bar. It's like 20 taps. It's like a bottle shop too, and a small little homebrew store too. It was like 35 minutes away from base, so I would go there all the time, buy beer and whatnot. And I remember I was talking to the one guy, and I told him I just started brewing beer, and he's like, all right, stay with extract. He goes, don't go all grain. He goes, it's just a different game. And I'm like, who are you talking to right now? Like, so I went out and I bought everything for all grain, and I tried all grain. He was right. Like,
Really?
Totally different world. I brewed a beer that was supposed to be like 5%, and came out like 2%. Like, it was just totally,
shit.
I didn't know what I was doing. So I went back to extract, and then started to learn more, and I was like, all right, I feel comfortable going all grain, so.
Is it because you have to use more grain to increase the ABV?
Right, yeah, and then you have to factor in like water levels and stuff like that. Like, you brew one of these extract kits, they say fill your kettle up to 1 gallon, and then you'll have 1 gallon inside your fermenter because you're not really like boiling it for 60 minutes like you traditionally would with all grain. For all grain, like, you have to have the right percentage for your mash to go in, the right level, and then that brings you to your boil level. When the boil level, if the boil level's too high or too low, like your OG, your original gravity of the beer is going to be either too low or too high because your water level is either too high or too low.
Yeah.
And that'll just throw off everything. So I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know about water level whatsoever. So I threw 1 gallon of beer in because I wanted 1 gallon of beer, and I ended up with like a half a gallon of beer, and like it was supposed to be like a 1050 original gravity. It was like 1020 or something like that.
So you're our third home brewer, right, that we've interviewed?
Yeah.
Third, Breyer Brothers, Crooked,
Crooked
and yeah.
and Greenlight.
So when we talk to other breweries, it seems like they have a very tight-knit community within the brewery industry, but we haven't really talked to a lot of home brewers to see, like, one, what the community is amongst home brewers, and then two, what the perception of, if you go into a brewery and say that you're a home brewer, how do they react? Like, what is that community like? Are they like, oh, another home brewer, or is it actually like, oh, what do you know?
Right. So there's actually a few of us from Buffalo on Instagram, like as like a brewery kind of, I'm friends with, like, we're all friends. Like,
Yeah.
we're all cool and stuff like that. I trade beers with them all the time. Good dudes. Like, I'm brewing a beer with one of them, I think next weekend or something like
Nice.
that. But going to the brewery and introduce, I've never done that. I don't think I have, at least. We talked about it, but I personally, I think sometimes the professional brewers like kind of forget like where they came from. Like they all started off as home brewers. They started off as those annoying, pesky like home brewers. They probably went to the breweries too, and said, "Oh, I'm a home brewer." Like, but I don't know. I don't think many of the brewers would stay like at bar hour.
Right, sure.
But I'm sure some of them are real down to earth to talk to you about stuff. Like one of the biggest, a brewery that I used to frequent often in North Carolina called Southern Pines Brewing. The head brewer would sit at the bar all the time, and you would walk in and he would just chit chat with you, be down to earth. One of my actual like motivations to keep brewing, because this dude was so cool, and he would be like, "Hey, how's that beer taste?" He would talk to you about it, and then I would show him a beer that I made. He'd be like, "Oh, try this next time." And he'd be like, "If you ever want to come in and see everything, like just let us know."
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah.
Damn. Super hospital.
I imagine some breweries are like that, but I imagine some breweries are like, kick rocks.
Right.
You know?
Do you have, you talked about Windy Brew, but do you have a favorite brewery in the area, or one that you try to make your beer base off of, or do you just try to put your own spin on things?
Yeah, any inspiration from local?
I try to put my own spin on everything.
Yep.
I don't really have inspiration from local, but like I'd say my top 3 favorite breweries in Buffalo is 42 North. If you put them under the Buffalo realm, I mean,
Sure.
East Aurora, close enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Breyer Brothers, they're great dudes.
Oh, yeah.
Joel, I mean, I'd go there a few times, and he's super down to earth, talking
Yeah.
to me all the time. Great guy. And I like Flying Bison. I'd never actually gone to the brewery itself, but like every time I go to Wegmans or something like that, if I need beer at home, like Flying Bison, I know I'm always pretty good to get a good beer.
It's so underrated, Flying Bison beer, because they've been around forever. Their beer has always been like really good, but they've never reached that like upper level where everyone's talking about them. Like they were a little bit when Rusty Chain first came out, everyone was kind of talking about it,
Right.
but then at that point, I think the craft brewery industry in Buffalo just exploded. Then everybody started talking about Big Ditch, Resurgence, and Thin Man. Like there was just no transition for them.
Yeah, they didn't have like the massive spike in fame.
Yeah.
But I mean, who cares?
Yeah, they don't
they're
care.
they're never going away either.
Yeah.
I try to stick to like, I'm not a hater of like hazy IPAs. Like obviously I brewed one here.
Yeah.
Right.
But like I try to stick to like traditional kind of styles. Like I'm a huge malt forward kind of guy. Like I love like Irish red ales,
Hell yeah.
Scottish ales, like stouts. I love all that kind of beer. Like stouts is like really what got me like into. I'm a huge coffee guy too. So like stouts and coffee goes hand in hand. You know.
Hell yeah.
So like I love stouts for that reason. So like I try to stick to those places who kind of brew like more of like my traditional kind of stuff. And 42 North does that literally all the time.
Yeah, and they're like mad scientists over there. They're great. They're great dudes. They were super nice when we worked with them.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Can we try that hazy one?
Yeah.
I'm stoked for that.
Yeah, me too.
So this one is a little bit beefier. It's 8%.
Okay.
It was brewed with 3 different hops. CTZ in the boil, which stands for Columbus, Tomahawk, Zeus. It's just like 3 hops that they kind of like, don't quote me on this, they bred and they kind of made like one super hop. And then every time I do this heavy drop series, I try to change up the Whirlpool dry hop to be the same 2 hops, but different hops every time.
Sure.
So this one's Sabro and Brew 1, and they're supposed to give off a pineapple, coconut, like pina colada type of vibe. Did I hit that? I don't think so. Personally, I don't know. I'll be honest, but I'm not gonna sit here and say my beer. This beer is like perfect.
Sure.
In any vein, but
That is interesting because in the distillery world, you don't really buy. I mean, I guess you kind of can, but you don't buy wheat expecting a certain flavor profile, right? Like you're not buying something saying I'm totally going to get cherry off of this. But
Correct.
in the brewery world, you're buying yeast and it's saying I'm probably going to expect pineapple. So when you're brewing and you taste test it, how much are you going off of the expected flavor that the yeast says that it should have versus how you actually think it tastes personally? Because you could potentially have like bad yeast.
I take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, like beer is a super subjective thing. Like,
Sure.
you might taste in this beer pineapple. You might taste citrus orange. I might taste lime and lemon. So it's a super subjective thing. So we all taste different stuff. I try to take it like somewhat.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers every time.
Cheers.
Out of respect. There's hours behind this.
Yeah, a lot of hours. I try to take it with a grain of salt. The one thing that's actually really hard that people don't think about is like making a hop combination. Like 'cause I could put Citro with this, let's say like Saz or something like that, which is like a Czech hop. Like putting those 2 hops together in a hazy IPA is like it's not going to be good. So like trying to figure out like a hop combination that you want to play around with is actually super super hard. And that's
Yeah.
kind of why I've stayed away from this for a while, because hops can get pretty expensive after a while.
No doubt.
And if I'm dumping batch after batch after an IPA, it gets pretty pricey, and I don't want to do that. So.
Oh, yeah. This is really good. You like this one?
Yeah, I like this more than the sour. This is like, I need this.
What are you getting? Are you getting the pineapple and coconut?
Dude,
or no?
I'm getting all the things, bro. This beer is literally hitting the spot. Like, stressful week, manual labor, it's hot out, I'm exhausted, I just need a drink. Pour this.
Yeah.
Like, to me, this would be the go-to in all of those situations.
I feel like if you didn't tell me there was coconut in here, I wouldn't have guessed it. But now that you said that, I can kind of get a little bit on the back end.
I can
there's
taste some
actually
coconut.
no coconut in it. The hop.
Well,
is,
the hop, coconut
hop
flavor.
is just supposed to bring off. And I'll tell you what, when I put this, so the hop that's gives out the coconut is supposed to be called Sabro. And when you put the hops in like the hot side of the beer, so like pre-fermentation when it's still hot in the kettle, you can smell like the second I put these hops in, it was just coconut. I was like, whoa.
It just smells like sunscreen.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
No, this tastes really good. It's got
does.
like a little skunky note to it too, which I love skunky notes in beer.
So when I kegged this beer at first, it was straight weed. Like
Oh, really?
It smelled like I like had Pineapple Express in my basement. And I was like, this is kind of cool, but it's not supposed to taste like this.
Tell your wife not to worry
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
I
Calm
like
down.
that skunky note though.
Me
It's kind of
too.
got that like Stella Artois like skunky green bottled beer. You know how much I love green bottled
God,
beer.
it doesn't stop
But
talking about green
it's
bottles.
so good. It makes the beer taste skunky.
Yeah.
And I love that taste in beer, and it's kind of got that.
Which-
Was this ever in a green bottle?
Yeah, that's a good point. If it's Greenlight Brewing, if you had glass bottles outside of normal cans, would you have green bottles? I feel like you would have
I never
to.
thought about that, but yeah, probably I would.
Yeah.
You would
That'd
have
be pretty
to.
Cool.
Yeah,
Or like green cap or something.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or if it's a straight black and white label, just have one green dot
Yeah.
somewhere on it.
So my wife, she was actually funny. She helps me out with all the posts and stuff like that, and sometimes I'll ask her like, hey, like, you know, can you find a story for me to tell a beer about? And she's like, you should just come out with a beer one day called Go. So it's literally just Greenlight Go.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
That'd be
maybe,
cool.
maybe one day I will, but you know, haven't decided to do that yet.
How
got-
would it taste like?
That's got to be the staple beer too.
Probably just like a crispy lager, you know.
Yeah.
Like I'm jumping out of an airplane, I want like a 3% like Czech Pilsner that I can just pound all day, you know.
Yeah, I don't
Right
want
from
a
the
9%
Camelback.
double IPA.
Right, you know.
Yeah.
I'll be spinning while I'm going down, and not in the right way either.
So we actually had this dude. So you have this tradition. It's called burying your jump wings. So your final jump, you rip the wings off of your chest and you bury them in the drop zone. That's right where you land. There's probably 1 million in all the drop zones. This one dude, he packed his entire rucksack full of PBR, and he landed, he buried his wings, and he just started shotgunning PBRs right out in the drop zone.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's so sick.
Are they still, when you got your wings, are they still doing blood wings? Or do they stop?
Not supposed to, but
Well, right.
but I mean, the jump masters at airborne school gave you a nice little love tap. So
Okay. Good.
yeah.
That's awesome. Because I think they stopped. They like announced that they weren't doing that anymore
Yeah.
right after. It was like a year and a half, 2 years after I left Benning, which it's not even called Benning anymore, but it's Benning forever. So
Just like Bragg's Bragg forever. It's not Liberty.
correct. Yeah. So for those that don't know, and for Derek, because I know you're going to be like, okay, what do you mean? When you get pinned your actual wings after you graduate airborne, like at graduation of airborne school, they used to do the same thing with rank as well. There's 2 metal prongs that penetrate your uniform, and then you have a dammet that goes behind and then clips it in, just like our pins for any lapel, except they leave the dammets off. And we call them a dammet because they always fall off, and then the first thing you say is damn it, because then you can't actually keep the thing on. They punch it into you, and then each person follows suit. So if there's like 4 instructors for the class, each instructor would punch, and then by the time you're done, you're literally bleeding because the prongs penetrated your skin. Well, someone complained, I don't know, Department of Labor, whatever, was like, hey, that's like hazing. Like you can't like make people bleed. We're just like, why? Like do it harder. And it's just like, it was, I don't know, it's just like a pride, you know, morale thing. Like it was good for you.
Imagine going through airborne school and then complaining that you're bleeding because of a needle.
So funny. This story, I'll never forget the story till the day I die. I can't make this up. Put my hand on the Bible. The very first jump at airborne school, like first time in the airplane, it's happening. You're jumping out of a plane. I was actually the first plane of the day, which I'm so glad for. Like that, I was the first plane. I was second pass of the drop zone, so I got to see the first pass jump out of the plane.
Nice.
So the very last jumper on the first pass, he was standing on the plane. So you stand up, you're hooked up, you got your static line, you're holding on to it. He's scared. He's very, very, which is understandable. I mean, he goes jump out of an airplane.
Yeah, right.
He's shaking. His face is totally pale and white. He looks at it, he says, I don't want to do this. We're like, man, you're already here. Like,
Yeah.
just jump. He starts walking down. They yell go. Everyone starts jumping. He walks down. He stops at the door. Jump masters rotated him, kicked him right out of the plane. Sayonara. He jumped.
Don't have a choice.
Yep.
There's 60 people behind you.
Yeah, go, dude.
Yeah, dude, get out of here,
You're
bro.
screwing up the timeline. Leave.
I don't know if you know this, but we're flying. Like, we don't have a lot of time. I'm not gonna have little Snuffy start floating into a different town, and then we gotta find him. So, how much control do you actually have with? I mean, the parachutes are from like 1926, so the like old school OG green ones. So most people don't really realize it's literally just preventing you from dying.
Yeah.
Like you don't have a lot of control from what I understand.
So there's two kinds of parachutes. What we jumped with were called T11s. You don't really have too much control. I mean, you can like slow yourself down a little bit, but like you're not like guiding your way to the ground, you know. Then there's these ones called MC6s, which is like what special operations jumps with and stuff. Some small units jump with them, but you have to be like specially trained on them and stuff.
Yeah, and like
they
lures.
legit have toggles, and you can like control yourself on your way down and stuff like that. But T11s, whatever paratrooper jumps with, like you're just landing like a sack of potatoes.
And I love how the Army is just like, oh yeah, this is, you're fine, you got a parachute. It's like, we're also going to add 420 pounds to you.
Yeah.
It's like, go ahead and down jump. It's just like, well, hold on, like I already have my rucksack. They're like, no, have another one. It's like, what are you talking about?
Do you recreationally jump still or no? No. How many times do you think you have jumped before?
My jump log that I have when I got out of the Army says 38, but there's probably like 5 or 6 that are not on that log, so I'd say well over 40.
Yeah.
Is airborne school on your log?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, those 5 jumps count.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
There was Andy Stumpf. He was a SEAL, got out, does a lot of stuff, and he still jumps, but he's certified in like a gajillion things, and he also does
He does that
wingsuits.
squirrel suit thing.
Yeah, he does. He does wings.
Crazy.
He's got a world record for wingsuit duration, like total miles covered, and he said for the longest time he couldn't jump civilian side because it wasn't safe. Where he's like, dude, you get out of the service and they're so strict on everything. It's like, oh, it's 1 mile an hour faster than we want the winds to be. Like, we're not jumping at all. Like, everyone's staying on the ground and you're just sitting there. And he's like, so they were just like, oh yeah, like we're fine, like just jump. And he's like, what about my checks? They're like, what do you mean? Like, there are no other checks. Like, you just leave the plane. He's like, dude, I'm skydiving. Like, we need some more checks. And for the longest time, he couldn't do it. Is that why you don't jump now? Or you just, I mean, beer's your life. So is having a kid. But
I think it's because I'm pretty fat, to be honest. I just don't want. I landed so hard so many times. My knees, my back were so destroyed. Like, I just don't want to live through that again. But the funny thing is, you asked me to do a static line jump with the homies again, I would do it in a heartbeat. I would get 1,000 feet above the ground in a C-130 crammed up in there in August, dying of heat exhaustion. And I would do it in an absolute heartbeat with the friends.
that's amazing.
And it's funny you say about wind. So when you're jumping, right, the Air Force flies you. Air Force controls the plane for a while, and then when you get close to the drop zone, Air Force will announce, Army, it's your door. Army takes over. It's our plane at that point. There's a guy, his name's DZSO, Drop Zone Safety Officer. He's got this wind machine. It's testing how many knots are going in the wind. He relays it up to the pilot. Pilot relays it to the crew chief. Crew chief relays it to the jump master. Jump master relays it to us. They do this thing like that, and they'll announce, 5 knots, 10 knots, whatever the case is. We had this one jump one time. A nighttime jump, you couldn't see anything. It was pitch black outside. The doors open to the plane. This huge gust of wind just draws in. It's freezing cold. And it's like a minute away. They yell 1 minute. We all get ready. Crew chief goes to the jump master, 5 knots. Jump master and us, 5 knots. Listen, I don't know if there was a huge gust of wind or if they just wanted to jump us. We jumped out of that plane and we were on the ground within like 10 seconds because the wind was just like...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it had to be like 20 knots. At least.
Oh my God.
We were out of the bird in the ground so fast. It was people got injured. People fell on the trees. It was horrible.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Have you seen anybody hit Humvees? My buddy was in Ranger Bat, and he's like, he had a jump when he was with 275, and then he went to 175 later in his career. But he's like, dude, I had no way out. And he landed, he hit the Humvee, like rolled over it. His like hips destroyed. Have you seen that?
Not Humvees. I've seen trees though all the time.
Okay.
Funny story. I actually landed. It wasn't a big tree. It was like like a 10-foot tree. I landed right on that thing in the middle of the drop zone. Why there's a pine tree in the middle of the drop zone, I don't know.
It was the one tree that you found?
That I landed on. It was pitch black outside. I couldn't even see it. So,
did anybody make you jump with a slice of cherry pie or no?
It's tradition.
Okay.
You absolutely have to. You put a cherry pie in each one of your pockets. Second you land on the drop zone, whatever side you landed on, you take it out of your shoulder pocket, your pants pocket. You scoop up the dirt from the drop zone the second you landed, and you eat that entire pie with the drop zone dirt and everything.
Why?
It's just tradition. So when you're considered a cherry, I don't know if I can say it on the podcast, but popping your cherry, that's what it's considered. Oh, you're popping your cherry.
Okay,
you're a cherry jumper.
All right, that makes more sense then, I guess.
Yeah, so you bring cherry pie with you. Dude, there's so many.
considered-
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's so much better than a party college, because it is a party, but then you have all these other random things tied into it.
It's the world's largest and greatest fraternity. I mean, it is.
It's such a dumpster fire. That's awesome, dude. There's gotta be. Here's the thing about Greenlight Brewing. Like, you can always touch on history. That's of course going to be a staple, but that's kind of like a fine line between, do I dive into this and make a beer talking about this aspect, or do I leave it alone so that only those that know?
Yeah. So that's the funny thing is, if I ever made Greenlight Brewing a reality, my vision of it would be to, like, quote unquote, make a safe place for veterans. I want them to walk in and feel like they're at the barracks again. Like, barracks on a Friday night, they're with all the dudes, regardless of branch, rank, MOS, whatever the case is, their job is in the military. Like, I want them to feel like at home, and that they can, like, hang out. Their dark sense of humor can be welcomed
showcased
and all that kind of stuff. I often thought about, I made a seltzer a while ago I called the Silver Bullet. Because if you pass out in the military, you get heat exhaustion, they stick a thermometer up your butt, and we nicknamed it the Silver Bullet. So they say drink water or else you're going to get a silver bullet. So that's why I made a seltzer called Silver Bullet. And I know only a select few people are going to ever understand that, but that's kind of like the fun behind it. Like, if you know, you know.
Yeah. Sure. It's like, do I even drink this?
Right.
Do you have a beer that you don't like making because it's either difficult or it's just, I don't know, that you just don't like to taste?
I don't know. I only brew beer that I like.
Sure. Like, what are your thoughts? You said that you kind of like more traditional stuff.
Yeah.
So do you do Pilsners and stuff like that too?
The lager world's a totally different world.
Right.
Okay.
It's an ale. I can ferment it at 68 degrees, whatever the case is, for 14 days, and I have a beer. Now, if we're going traditional lager, we got a cold fermented around like 48 to 55 degrees for a couple days, raise it up temperature, let it rest, cool it back down, let it lager for a couple months. I'm gonna start getting into the lager game. I just don't ever have the patience.
Sure.
Like, I don't have the patience for a lot of beer sit for 2 months in lager and condition. But I love drinking lagers. I'll drink them all day.
Well, because you only have one fermenter, right?
I have a few fermenters, but
Okay.
I use one like primarily all the time.
Sure.
Because of the abilities I can do with it. I have other ones. I have a few chest freezers that I can kind of control the fermentation temperature with and whatnot. But I just kind of stick to one fermenter. So for now, at least.
Cherry wheat's a lager, yeah? Sam Adams?
No, it's an
wheat.
ale.
It's an ale? Damn, that's why I like it so much. Okay. Because there's
There's like only a few lagers. There's like lager, traditional, Pilsner, and then what's the other? There's only like one more, right? Like
So-
traditional type of beer that's a lager.
Right. Like, well, there's a lot. Like lagers, there's two styles of beer, right? Lagers and ale.
Yeah.
Ales are like your stouts, your IPAs, your blonde ales, your pale ales, your saisons, your Belgian ales, English, all that kind of stuff. Your lagers are more like German Pilsners, Doppelbocks, Schwarzbier, Czech Pilsners, American, like Budweiser's a lager, Bud Light's a lager.
So that's why a lot of beer people, some would call them snobs, but like the educated people for beer always try, if a brewery opens, they're like, let me have your Pilsner.
Yeah.
And they pick that because that's on the lager side, and it's it takes longer to do and it's like more challenging, right?
Yeah,
So they're just like, this is basically the test, is like your Pilsner compared to everybody else's Pilsner.
So like these IPAs, like that sour that I gave you guys, I could have traditionally made it like to a blonde ale and then not liked it, then just put fruit puree in it, and I'm gonna hide all those like imperfections, all those bad flavors. But like I brew a lager, there ain't no hiding nothing behind that thing.
Okay.
You know, like it's usually like 1 or 2 malts, very little hops just to balance it out, and then like a lager yeast, a clean strain, and like you'll notice like if it's not clean, like literally crispy, like then there's either wasn't lagered too long or there's like some imperfection in that beer. To like it should be crispy. Like when they say crispy boys, like
Yeah.
it should be pretty crispy. Like especially like a Czech Pilsner.
But to that end, though, isn't it? Would you say it's more difficult to mess it up if you just do what you're supposed to do? Like I feel like with so many ingredients going into an ale, you can easily add too much and mess it up.
Right.
Whereas a lager, it might take longer. You might know if it sucks easily, but it shouldn't be that difficult to mess up, right? Because there's only so many ingredients.
Right. The lager is in the fermentation game.
Okay.
So like there's some beers where like it's a full beer, like
Sure.
if your grain bill, like all the grains you use and the hops you use isn't good and like your fermentation's not good, it's not gonna be a good beer. But like lagers, like okay, we all know it's gonna be like usually like 1 malt, like a Pilsner malt or a pale malt, and maybe like a little bit to increase head retention in body. Like 1 hop, it's nothing crazy, and then just the yeast. If your fermentation's not good with a lager, what you have to do is called a diacetyl rest. So diacetyl is a precursor in yeast that gives off like caramel, butter popcorn, butterscotch flavors. It happens in pretty much every single yeast. You have to give it called a diacetyl rest. If you don't give that lager like a traditional diacetyl rest, that diacetyl is going to stay stuck in that beer, and you're literally going to have like a kettle corn, like butterscotch Pilsner. You know?
I mean, that almost sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It sounds good until you actually like
Try it?
diet. Like go to the store, buy butterscotch flavoring, buy a Bud Light, and just put some butterscotch flavoring in it. I guarantee you're gonna dump it.
Got it. Because, like, if caramel's in whiskey, I'm happy.
Right.
Not the same.
No.
Okay. Got it. Me and Derek are like drooling. You're like,
Yeah,
dude, it's
we're like-
trash. Like, what are we talking about?
It tastes like oak, vanilla, caramel. It's like, whoa, let's do this.
It's like one of our namesakes.
But you can mess it. So that's an aspect where you can really mess it up.
Yeah, you can mess up a lager pretty easily in the fermentation game.
I gotcha.
That's kind of why I've stuck away from them a little bit. Is patience, 1, and 2, just like I don't want to sit here and watch this beer for like I want to just set the beer at 68 and just let it go for 2 weeks.
You want the green light, baby.
Yeah, I don't want to just sit there and let it go for 55, then next day come and raise the temperature to 58, and raise the temperature 2 days later to 60, and like slowly raise the temperature to let it rest.
So this obviously isn't your full-time job. Do you still work?
Oh yeah.
What would be your ideal situation? Is it like, don't obviously say where you work, but where do you see Greenlight Brewing going? Is this something, we talked about it in the beginning, is this something that you want to have a brick and mortar, or is this just a fun hobby now to trade?
Right now it's a fun hobby. In 5 years, who knows? I would absolutely love to make it a real place and a real business. It'd be an absolute dream of mine. Luckily, I'm in the trade industry. I'm an electrician by trade.
Okay.
So, like, luckily, I would be able to save some pennies and do a lot of the work myself.
Sure.
But the thing is, I want to do it right. If I do it, you know, I don't want to like rush into things just because I want to open up Greenlight Brewing and make it like an actual establishment. I've had people message me all the time and say, "Hey, where can I buy your beer from?" And I always offer them a free growler fill, or if I have bottles, hey, I got bottles for you. You know, if you want to come pick them up, or I can drop them off to you. You know, you're more than welcome to come get them. I've often thought about like actually going down the gypsy brewing route and like getting a license and trying to contact a brewery and renting out a fermenter space.
Can you describe that a little bit? What is Gypsy Brewing?
So Gypsy Brewing is like, we'll use like Russ at Winnie Brews for hypothetical reasons. Like say I messaged Russ and I said, hey man, like I'm getting license and paperwork done and I'm getting approved through the state, like Greenlight Brewing is gonna be like a real thing. I don't wanna open my own spot yet. Can I use your equipment and brew under your license? And then I'll rent out your fermenter space. I'll brew all the beer myself and then distribute it myself as well. You can do that. There's this guy in New York, his name's Nightmare Brewing. He does that. He's like a very established brewery, but he's a gypsy brewer. He just travels around New York and just brews at spots that let him brew. And he distributes nationwide.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
He's a nationwide gypsy, yes?
Yeah, yeah.
That's nice. So what is the brewery scene out in Lockport? That's where you said, right? Lockport?
That's where I.
That's where he's from.
Oh, okay. And you're in Tonawanda now. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were to open up a new brewery,
Yeah.
where would your ideal spot be? Would it be back up in Lockport? Because it seems like downtown Buffalo has a lot.
I'll tell you, Hurdle Ave.
Hurdle Ave, yeah.
But I've done a few jobs on Hurdle Ave as an electrician, and like I've been on that main part of Hurdle Ave, and I've been like, dude, this is an untapped location right here.
100%. You got restaurants and coffee.
And you got shops, you got people walking, you got shops, people walking downtown. There's ice cream shops, a brewery. Like, why wouldn't I put that? You got walking traffic, you have neighborhoods, you have like pretty much a slower driving street, so people could see like, okay, you know, I could park on the side of the road, go get a pint, and then walk next door to
Sure.
you know, whatever burger company and get a cheeseburger or whatever
Right.
the case is. You know, that's Hurdle Ave would be like I would try to find a spot on like a mainstay on Hurdle
Yeah.
Ave.
That's kind of refreshing to hear because I feel like more people now are going for the destination brewery route, like Brazen Brewing out in Depew and First Line out in Orchard Park. Like they're so far away from the beaten path that if their beer sucks, which they don't, they make good beer, but if their beer sucks, you're not having walk-in traffic.
Yeah.
That's a destination that you have to actually pick up and go to and do stuff. Like where if you're on Hurdle.
Even Windy.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's in the
Even
middle of
Windy.
nowhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but
not.
like, dude, he's got a cult following.
Yeah.
Because it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good
Right.
juice.
But like if you're on Hurdle, not saying your beer doesn't have to be good, but you have a better chance of succeeding because you have the walk-in traffic
Right.
and you have people that might not necessarily be going to Hurdle for your brewery, just walking and grabbing
Right.
a beer quick.
And so many people are sick of Elmwood.
Yeah. And you also kind of, I've kind of looked at like what I want my scene to be, you know, like, do I want like the group of like fresh 21, 22-year-old kids like coming in and just getting hammered and like kind of destroying my establishment? Like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like, I want maybe that husband, wife who they're coming here to grab a pint before they go to dinner, you know, or vice versa. They're coming here after dinner for a couple beers or whatever the case is.
And the husband's an absolute savage.
Right, like that's like what I obviously everyone would be welcome, but I'm saying like, I have to like you have to think about like who I want at my place. Like I would never put a place like near UB or like Canisius or anything
Right.
like that for fake IDs and like a bunch of college like punks, I guess you could say, you know.
Sure.
Like,
So being a home brewer, though, you can't sell your beer, right?
Yeah.
So if there's somebody listening to us that wants to somehow support you,
Yeah.
how can they go about doing that? Because they can't just buy your beer.
right. I mean, I have merch online.
Okay.
They can buy. That directly supports me as well. Last year I did a fundraiser. I got some T-shirts made, and I did a fundraiser. Literally every single dollar of it, I spent my own money getting the design made. The month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I got a T-shirt design made for that, and every single donation went to Project 22 or something like that. So I did that, which was pretty cool because I think I made like $300.
Oh, nice.
People got donated to, which I mean, at the end of the day, when you think about it, I'm a small Instagram account and people $300 worth, like I was pretty impressed by
Yeah.
it.
No, that's
for
huge.
sure.
And then people just follow my Instagram, you know, and if they like ever see a beer that I post that they want to try, or they like, okay, this looks pretty good, like feel free to message me. I'm more than welcome to fill up a couple bottles for you or fill your growler.
He'll give you the details of it.
Yeah, I mean, I give out beer for free, literally all the time.
So you can do that? You can give out beer for free?
I
Okay.
don't care.
It's America, Derek.
Well, I didn't know with the whole beer industry if you can just give out beer for free.
Yeah, I do all the time.
Well, if his Instagram account is down, now you know why. But no, that's cool.
It has been down a couple times. I got
Has it?
shadow banned a few times.
Did you really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just because of like historical context?
Yeah, because I was putting Nazis like in the history. I was putting like, you know, they fought Nazis. Well, they don't like the word Nazi, so I got shadow banned. Like, yeah.
You're
Freaking Zuckerberg.
I know,
man.
seriously.
You got to roll with him now because he's training with what's his face. He's training with Israel Adesanya. No, do you see that?
Training?
Yeah, because him and Elon Musk are going to fight each other.
Yeah, it's not a fight. Elon's just going to show up and just like destroy him. I'm
Dude,
sure.
Zuckerberg is a black belt in judo or jujitsu or something.
He cheated in his last competition, and then he literally like paid the ref off to like get the victory.
He's training with Adesanya and the other guy, Verchenko or something like that.
That's cool. You can grapple all you want. Elon's just going to punch him once in the face, and then he won't know what to do.
We'll talk about that during a weekly episode, but
I'm Team Elon. that dude's
I mean,
a college
so
nerd who
am I.
created a
I don't
network
like
to hang out with friends.
Zuckerberg,
Like,
but-
just join like we did. And just there's your network. You don't have to create an app, nerd.
So social media work. What's your handle?
Greenlight Brewing.
Okay.
Either Greenlight Brewing or Greenlight Brewing Co. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's
If I'm
Greenlight
being
Brewing.
honest. Yeah.
We'll throw it in the thumbnail. But are you on Facebook or do you have a
No,
website now?
just Instagram.
Just Instagram.
Yeah.
Easier way to do it.
It's a way to do it.
Yeah.
Too much, you know.
Yeah.
So would next for you be like going back to a 5-barrel system or a 5-gallon system, not 5-barrel, but a 5-gallon system so you can produce more beer, or are you just staying at the 3.5?
I'm just staying at 3.5
Yeah.
for now. I have no reason to switch
Sure.
over. I have some buddies who have like 10-gallon systems and stuff like that, and like we're brewing a 10-gallon batch like next week, so I'll have cans of bunch of cans of an IPA soon, so I can bump off their systems for now. But
Yeah, you have the resources and the
Yeah.
connections if you needed to make more.
yeah, I love the 3.5 gallon.
Yeah.
One, everything's cheaper, ingredients are cheaper, brewing is cheaper, and two, it allows me to brew more because I'm going through beer faster than what I would be for a 5-gallon. So
Yeah.
Sure. Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming to sit down. Is there anything else that you want to touch on that we didn't get to?
No, I don't think so. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude.
appreciate it. Go follow him, Greenlight Brewing, on Instagram. And if he's got some beer, shoot him a DM. He'll talk to you about it and then maybe give you a bottle. But thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.